Hi, my name is Mark Molnar. I'm a concept artist and illustrator working in the entertainment industry. Uh, this in this painting process, I would like to show you how you can paint a relatively happy or bright image. I really like to start with more pastel colors in cases like this because it gives me the opportunity to play with more values, and I can still enhance the contrast and the saturation of the colors later. So as a first step, I'm trying to block in the overall composition of the piece and trying to establish the general color scheme what I'm using. So as you can see, I'm going more towards an orangey beige overall colors with a hint of blue and purples. Uh, what I'm what I'm adding to add more richness to the orange parts. So I'm basically what I have in mind is having a bit unbalanced composition. So that's why I put the character in front, and here I'm just blocking in the main shapes and the main lights. So I already decided the sun is coming from the right side of the image. So I'm trying to match all the lighting and all the shadows for that. Um, this is the second pass of the lighting. So just I'm using mainly overlay and colored layers to balance out the lights more. And when I'm satisfied with the overall composition, I quickly jump in and add more adjustment layers, like a color balance and the curves adjustment layer. Especially the color balance is helpful if you wanna differentiate the colors in your shadows and lights, so you can really quickly experiment and decide which is the better setup uh, for your image. So as I would like to keep this really painterly, I'm really sometimes I'm really zooming out, and this is the part where I blocked in everything, but I wasn't 100% happy with the composition, so I zoomed out and I tried to fix this more as a thumbnail image. So I quickly resizing things and adding more elements to frame the composition more. As you can see, this was pretty rough. So, but still, I ended up with a much more interesting composition than what I had before. This is a step where I add more saturated colors to the focal point. I use this red consciously because what I had in mind is basically it's a marching army what just arrived back from a battle, just arrived back to the city. So and the red is always the color of the aggression and color of the power. So it's a perfect match for the soldiers. But I can still keep the sort of happy and glorious mood in the whole image with the more oranges and less saturated greens and pastel colors. Uh, with the mood paintings or key paintings like this, when I'm really rough, I like to flatten all my layers uh, in every like 20 minutes or so, and it gives me the opportunity to quickly not just change the composition but also use the free transform and warp tools to add more lens-like effects or lens-like distortions to the whole image. And here it's basically just trying to, I'm just trying to refine the architecture and trying to find what it is, what we are looking at exactly. I'm also using the lasso tools and the mark tools to add more hard edges and to define the perspective more. As you can see, I didn't really use any perspective lines in the beginning, so I was more going for the overall composition, but after a while I like to refine what I already have, so just to add sort of visual guides to the viewer, just to fake the perspective, if you want to call that. And this, from this point, it's basically just adding more details. So I already established the whole image. We can feel the space. We can feel the perspective. It still gives a lot of room to our imagination. We can see the crowd. But I really would like to define this a bit more, so I'm about halfway through this image. Of course, you can spend weeks and weeks on an image to really refine every single detail, but in this case, my goal was more to create a successful mood or key image, to show the general feel of this scene. As you see, I'm not going into really small details, so I'm not really zooming in into the image at all. So I'm just still trying to add more and more finesse without going into too much, going into the small stuff too much. And you can also see I'm jumping back and forth with between different parts of the image. This is because I believe that you have to develop the image as a whole, and not because it's really easy to get lost in the small parts. And like if I really would like to zoom into that helmet and detail the hell out of it with adding all sorts of intricate details and carvings and such. But my main goal is to create a successful image and not necessarily a beautiful painted helmet. That could be the next step. So I'm also trying to focus more on the focal points and the things what can make the focal points more believable. So what are closer to our hero, these shadows and the main knight in the foreground. And those are my key focal point. And the secondary is basically the other knight in the background, what makes the first one in the foreground much more believable, as I instantly understand that this is the same guy or the same type of guy who probably rides the same beast. Yeah, I quite like to use the liquify tool as well, just to correct anatomy faults. Just jumping back and forth, adding small details. but still trying to keep it painterly. At this point, I'm using the smudge tool. What is really good if you already have an established palette, so you don't want to introduce more colors, and you want to achieve a more painterly look. And it could also help you differentiate your edges as well. So here I collected some images. What could be a good match. It's mainly about Islamic architecture and pictures from North Africa, from Morocco. I just read them from online. Most of them are from public domain, but I'm not really concerned about copyrights at this stage because I just want to use these images to add an extra level of visual noise. As you can see, I'm just quickly dropping them onto the image and erasing them back like 80-90%, and just leaving some hints what could lead the viewer's eye. And I'm using them mostly on an overlay layer and desaturating them a bit to lose their colors, because the overlay layer is a bit tricky because it could really change your values and saturation levels. So yeah, that was pretty much it. So all the photos, as you can see, I already had everything established underneath the photo textures. So they just give me an extra level of realism and detail. So the next step is to actually bring back the painter feel with these more details, because most of the photo textures are not really 100% matching to the painted structures underneath. So I have to go back and paint on top. Adding more atmosphere, always helpful. Defining the shapes more, and the planes, what are in light, what in shadow. Differentiate different space segments slightly. But yeah, it's getting pretty close. I'm quite happy with it already. So this is the point where the first phase of the image is done, and I give it a couple of days rest, and then I go back to finish it up and doing the final detailing with a fresh eye. It's always good to give your paintings a bit of a rest, because even if you're flipping your image and trying to refresh your eye, or trying to break your workflow into different parts, but it's if you can, it's always good to step back and leave your painting for a day or two, or at least for a couple of hours. Do something really different. I mean, everyone has a different workflow, but this one works for me. Yeah, so this last process is basically continuing what I started in the previous half an hour or so. well, the whole process took me about 3.5, 4 hours. So this last hour, what we just started is it's basically continuing the same process. So defining the shapes more, defining the edges, the architectures more, uh, make a bit more accurate lighting, adding a bit more atmosphere, just slowly pushing down the whole image a bit. It's really hard because I didn't want to over detail it, so but I still wanted to put in enough definition to see where this whole thing is going towards. Now you can see the photo textures more when I zoomed in. I mean, you can barely see faces in there and people, but not really. But it's enough to lead your eye and to actually believe it's a huge crowd there. It's a huge crowd there. Fixing some proportions because I felt the guy on that piece is just way too big compared to the architecture behind him. And now this pretty much the final step of the process is to, because I detailed the whole background and the secondary focal point further, so I have to push the night in the foreground or mere focal point a bit more. Trying to focus on edge control and trying to focus on materials, the reflections of his armor. So again, I'm not going for a hyper-realistic look, but I still would like to see those details, what can make this character more believable. And I'm jumping in with a color balance because the image is pretty much finished. So, but I still would like to add another punch to finish it off. I think a bit more perspective distortion, a bit of value adjustments and shadows. Extra level of dust there. Yeah, checking the final composition. And the image is pretty much done. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something and enjoy this workshop.